Welcome to Getting Unstuck, Part 6, Gratitude and Positive Event Journaling. Today's topics, gratitude and positive event journaling, are really the first time we're going to get a bit deeper into how depression impacts our thinking and some specific ways of trying to reverse that trend or work with that trend. Certainly what we've gone over in sections 4 and 5 of making changes to behavior certainly can impact our thinking, as we talked about before, by engaging in more activities that you either have gone away or you just haven't been doing as much of as a result of your depressive symptoms can result in fewer depressive thoughts. So if you were thinking, I don't have the energy to do X, Y, or Z, and then weren't doing those things, and then you start doing them, those thoughts might go away. Similarly, if you had the thought of no one likes me and you start socializing more and have some good experiences, that thought might also go down. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of how depression impacts thinking and some other things you can do to try and work with that. Okay, so our first topic here is really trying to understand how depression impacts our thinking. And the truth here is depression impacts our thinking in a whole variety of different ways. And trying to go over all of those different ways is far beyond the scope of this workshop and beyond the scope of this specific video. However, what we can do is focus on one specific area, one specific way that depression impacts our thinking, and this way is called a mental filter. The way that a mental filter works is that you can sort of think of it as someone wearing sunglasses. The sunglasses essentially represent depression. And as sunglasses block out or reduce the brightness of light, so does the mental filter in the sense that it blocks out or reduces our sensitivity to positive things in our environment and only lets in the negatives. Sort of like sunglasses, how as you're looking through those, things will appear darker. Same goes with the mental filter in depression. Your life will seem darker and less enjoyable, less positive. So when we talk about this mental filter only letting in the negatives, that would mean that you are attending more to things like rejection, the fact that you aren't enjoying activities as much as you used to. You'll be more susceptible to thinking, ruminating, reflecting on past failures, and also focusing on upcoming challenges. Instead of upcoming things you might be looking forward to, such as time with friends, you might be thinking about the test you have coming up that you don't feel prepared for. And the mental filter may also influence the likelihood of you viewing yourself as unprepared to take that test. So again, think of the mental filter as sunglasses only letting in this dark information, negative information, and limiting our ability to see the positives in our environment and in the world. And important to recognize that the filter isn't necessarily making any of this up. So you might have been rejected, probably are having a harder time enjoying what's happening in your life. We all have past failures or mistakes that have happened in our past. We all have challenges we're going to face in the future. The filter isn't creating anything. It's more just focusing our attention on one narrow section of the world. So instead of seeing the big picture of both positives and negatives, because of depression, because of this mental filter, we are much more attuned to just the negatives, just the parts of our lives that are really hard and challenging. So then our job is to open the perspective back up to see everything and not just what the filter automatically allows in. And we'll get into how we specifically do that, but it's first important to recognize that what we don't want to do is to act like the negatives don't exist. That would be making essentially the same mistake just in reverse. If we had a mental filter that was only letting in the positive information and completely discounting all the negative, that also wouldn't end well in the sense that we'd probably be taking unnecessary risks and things like that. So again, we want to open our perspective to everything, not just the negatives that we're automatically seeing. And we'll get to how we can specifically work on doing that. So the first part of opening up our perspective focuses on gratitude. Gratitude, very simply, just asking yourself the question, what are you grateful for in your life? These can be large things, these can be small things, with the idea being we all have some aspects to our lives that we appreciate, some aspects that we enjoy or that we feel just grateful to have in our lives. And the mental filter limits our capacity to see those kinds of things. And just because we're having a harder time seeing them doesn't mean they don't exist. So by specifically attending to the items for which we are grateful can balance the scales a little bit. Because depression is going to do that work a lot of times of showing us the negative. And as I mentioned on the last one, we're not trying to ignore the negative, but these strategies, first gratitude, and then we'll get to positive events in a minute, both strategies are essentially attempting to balance the scales by specifically pointing our attention in the direction of positive things in our lives. So first of those is gratitude. So some examples of things that you might be grateful for could be family, could be friends, could be your housing, could be exchanging a smile with a stranger, could be receiving a compliment, can be giving a compliment, could be your health, could be pets, could be any enjoyable meal or just the fact that you have food you can enjoy. Could be something like Netflix. You can be grateful for a TV show or a movie you really like, or a video game, anything like that. So with gratitude, a really helpful tool to help us sort of cultivate gratitude or at least pay more attention to it can be specifically journaling about gratitude. So you'll find, in addition to this video, there is a worksheet that has space for you to journal about things that you are grateful for. And this can be a daily thing, can be a weekly thing, can be a one-time thing. It really depends on you. Some of the larger items, such as like family and friends, those might be like a one-time thing where you write them down and just sort of try to recognize those things. And then more of the daily practice can be just focusing on what you're grateful for, focusing on the fact that I have a great family or I'm really close with my friends, whatever the case may be. But it can also be helpful to journal on more of a daily basis about good things that happened that day, things you're grateful for that happened that day. And that's what we're going to come to now. So positive events, again, is more in the realm of the specifics. Gratitude can be overarching, like we mentioned, the examples of family and friends. Positive events can be much more specific and much more time limited in the sense of what was a good thing that happened to me today, and being able to journal about that in an ongoing fashion. Again, being able to ask yourself, the number here is somewhat arbitrary, but what are 5 pleasant things that happened to me today? And these can be events that you brought about or random events, something nice someone else did for you, anything like that. There will probably be some overlap with gratitude, and that's fine. Chances are you're going to feel grateful for positive events. That's great. The idea here, again, is just specifically pointing our awareness to things that we aren't as naturally inclined to notice or focus on when depressed. And specifically attending to the fact that these events, these things we're grateful for and positive events in our lives still exist, even though it's hard to see them when we're depressed. So again, that idea of widening or broadening the perspective. So examples of positive events: went on a walk, had a conversation with a friend, enjoyed my breakfast, laughed at a YouTube video, sent an email to a professor. So I include this last example as something you can do sort of in conjunction to what we've talked about in parts 4 and 5 of the workshop, making changes to your daily routine by incorporating more activities that you might not have been doing otherwise. The positive event and gratitude journaling can be a great way to celebrate those successes. Whenever you do incorporate an activity that maybe you weren't doing before, or one that you hadn't thought of in a while, journaling about it and writing either that you're grateful for just trying it or talking about what happened as a result of it, anything like that can be really great and a good way to kind of bring all of these changes together. Because as we've talked about, behavior, thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, all of these different things work in conjunction and really contribute to depression. And so in reverse, by changing our behavior and then specifically focusing on them, again, changing the way we think about it by focusing on the fact that I tried even though it was hard, as opposed to the thought of there's no point in trying because it will be hard, can be a great way of creating change in your life. And so that will wrap up part 6 of the workshop. From today, recommendation or homework is to utilize the blank worksheet. The worksheet in and of itself, you can use it. You might want to just use either just paper or create your own Word document. The recommendation here is really journaling, and journaling on a regular basis that you determine for yourself. Specifically, the idea of the journaling here is to focus on what happened that was positive. A great place to start there is creating a list, such as the example we have on this slide of 5 pleasant things that happened to me today. Can be 5, can be 10, could be 3 to start out with, and then maybe tomorrow it's 5, and the day after it's 7, and on and on. Again, the idea just being, try to bring your attention more to the stuff that depression clouds our ability to see. And as we'll come back for part 7, we will talk about all of these different changes and how you can add those things together and sort of what specific changes you might want to make in your life.